Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, Bachelor's Degree Program, Elective Course, Rural Development, BRDE 101 Rural Development, Indian Context, Block-1 Rural Society, Unit 1 Social Structure. 1.0 Aims and Objectives. This unit aims at familiarizing you with some of the important features of rural social structure like caste, tribe and class, family, kinship and marriage, religion and language. It will facilitate you in the understanding of Indian rural social structure. After studying this unit, you will be able to times understand major types of Indian societies like urban, rural and tribal. Times distinguish the main characteristics of Indian rural society tilde one terms of family, kinship, and marriage. Times understand major religions and languages existing in India, and times identify the changes in the nature and role of families in rural areas. 1.1 Introduction. You are aware that about 3/4 of Indian population live in the villages. Therefore, rural economy, society, and polity play an important role in determining the nature of wider society of which they are a part. This unit will acquaint you with important features of rural social structure and the CL characteristics that distinguish rural, urban, and tribal societies. It is important for the understanding and distinguishing important features of rural life. In this unit, efforts will be made to examine major institutions that comprise rural social structure, an intricate network of relationships that binds them. You should, however, note that no single explanation or analysis is applicable throughout the country like India, because 0 1 variations between regions, subregions, and also between different religions, castes are under linguistic groups. These variations in form, extent or degree are outcomes of the features like unity and diversity in India. It will enable you to explain the important features of the Indian rural society. 1.2 Major types in Il tilde Dia society. 1 Rural Indian society generally constitutes rural, urban, and tribal societies which differ from each other in many ways. In this context, it is important to note that a wide spectrum of positions in rural, urban, and tribal communities have emerged because of wide interactions of socio-economic and political variables. Further, with the passage of time, villages have acquired gradually the traits of towns or cities. The process of development, modernization, and change are playing key role in it. You can observe that how gradually tribal areas are acquiring the features of rural and urban societies. Today, rural, urban, and tribal areas are interconnected and dependent on each other in different contexts, and mutually supporting relationship between them are considered as ideal. However, in practice, the cities tend to dominate on others because of better facilities required for good life, sources of income, etc. However, for the development of the country, gradual emphasis is laid down on the rural and tribal development with due care on the maintenance of tribal identity. Let us now conceptualize the rural society. You are aware that rural society is constituted by the villages, which are important components of rural society. Times. Village is generally characterized as small unit of a rural settlement which comprises at the maximum of a few hundred households and considered as the lowest unit in administration known as panchayats. It comprises of homestead land, abadi, cultivable land, and small forest grassland. The settlement pattern of households is either of the compact nucleated type or of dispersed type or a combination of the two. The predominant pattern in many parts of the country is the compact nucleated type, where houses are occupied by owners. It is quite common to find houses in the village, clustered according to kinship, caste, or religious groups. In the villages, land is usually the primary source of production, distribution, and consumption, where predominant occupations are agriculture, agricultural labor, and allied occupations. Here, the number of people engaged in non-agricultural pursuits is small. Basically, Indian villages are agriculture-based, food-producing units which produce not only for their own consumption but for the urban societies also, which are non-food producing units. It has limited occupational specialization because of the demand for a wide variety of relatively unspecialized tasks. A village community has comparatively homogeneous social economic features with simple technological and organizational pattern where the pace of change is slow. 2. Urban. The urban society is heterogeneous, known for its diversity and complexity. It is large in size and high in terms of density of population with small family size and nuclear family norms. Cities are fast growing entities because of migration of population from rural to urban areas. It is dominated by relationships organized around narrow ranges of practical interests or goals without which it would not exist, known as secondary relations. Formal means of social control such as law, legislation, police, and court are needed in addition to the informal means for regulating the behavior of the people. The urban society, in comparison to rural society, is mobile and open. It provides more chances for social mobility. There is widespread division of labor, skill and specialization-based work-related opportunities in pursuing occupations. Here, people are more class-conscious, progressive in outlook and exposed to the modern developments in the fields of science and technology. Mass education and health facilities are widespread in the cities. Increasing democratization of the organizations and institutions and level of consciousness demand widespread quality education and medical care. To conclude, a distinction between rural and urban societies can be made on a number of variables which influence each other. In this context, you can observe the migration of socio-cultural characteristic of the villages to the cities where they are transformed, refined, modernized, developed, and returned to villages. Similarly, innovations and modernization taking place in the cities are gradually percolating in the villages. 3. Tribal. Tribe is an anthropological concept. Various authors have referred it as animistic, aboriginals, and Adivasi. They have been viewed as semi-civilized people residing in hills and forests or as a special group of agriculturists. Tribe is generally defined as a social group usually living in a definite area, having a dialect, cultural homogeneity, and unified social organizations. Sometimes tribe as a social group usually comprising a number of siblings, bonds, villages, or other special groups with distinctive culture and a unified political organization. To conclude, a tribe is a territorial group with its own language, culture, religion, and a unified social organization. Times. A tribal society, in theoretical terms, has subsistence economy, primarily production, is for their own consumption, which does not generate surplus. There is no uniform pattern in their acceptance of modernization and development. The Government of India Act 1935 has declared most of the areas inhabited by tribal as tribal areas. After independence, these areas were named as scheduled areas and included in the Schedule V and 6 of the Constitution of India. Today, tribal communities living in different parts of the country have achieved different levels of socio-economic development. Despite varied cultural, socio-economic disparities, a tribe as a social entity continues to be a social reality which distinguishes it from general population. The Constitution of India has a number of provisions to safeguard the interests of tribes which prominently figure in the Schedules V and 6 of the Constitution. Article -342 of Indian Constitution has enlisted tribal communities of India, which specifies these tribes only as scheduled tribes. 1.3c STE and class. Here our description of caste system will be confined to important features and functions of caste system. It will enable you to understand its significance in the development of rural society. As you know, the caste system is an important feature of Hindu society. This system divides people into hierarchical order. In this division, each group has a common origin and common occupation with which caste is identified. Each caste is a relatively closed group. In this system, the status of a person is not determined by wealth but by birth in the caste placed in the traditional hierarchical order. The caste divisions are maintained rigidly. Marriage and other family links between the castes are not allowed. For example, the marriage of a Brahman with a girl below his caste will not be acceptable in village community. There will be a strong reaction in the society against both the boy and the girl. Concept of purity and pollution are the important features of the caste system. Those lowest in the caste hierarchy suffered from many kinds of social and economic disabilities. They are generally poor and considered outcasts or untouchables. After independence, Indian government has initiated several measures to eliminate the ills caused by the caste system because it has been viewed as impediment in the processes of socio-economic and political development of the country. You are listening to this audio book on Audio Learn IGNOU. The caste system, being the predominant feature of Indian rural social structure, has received serious attention of contemporary social scientists as it is viewed as most significant factor influencing the process of development. Caste as basic category of social stratification in rural society has significantly influenced the social basis of leadership formation among castes. Certain castes are known as dominant castes. A particular caste may have dominance in the rural areas not because of birth but due to other factors. For example, in a village there may be Brahmins but not in a position to exert heavy influence in the village. At the same time, the members of other caste, even lower in social hierarchy, may enjoy a status of power by virtue of their superior economic and political positions. Earlier at local level, the dominant castes were often the focus of power. Now measures introduced to bring changes in the social system are gradually transforming economic and political context of the country. The distributive aspects of relationship between caste, positions of power and economic benefits have undergone perceptible change and new sets of relationships have emerged in all spheres. Even today, The preponderance of caste system is having significant influence in the country in general and rural society in particular. Therefore, it is important for us to examine how this system is taking shape in rural India and to identify the forces that are operating within and outside the caste system. Integration versus disintegration. The basic structure of caste system denotes that it is a source of integration as well as disintegration. The integration or cohesion exists among the members of the same caste as well as between different castes. There are certain practices that are common to a particular caste which do not permit a member of one caste to establish a relationship with the other caste and thus leading to disintegration. For example, the intercaste marriage is usually not encouraged by the very fact that the society is divided into different strata. We can easily understand that caste is a source of division or disintegration. Even today, the practice of untouchability is not completely rooted out from our country in spite of various legislative measures. Thus, the caste system still permeates through the life of rural communities, dividing and disturbing their coexistence and harmonious life. 2. Social mobility. Though caste system has certain elements of disintegration, but it is also a source of social mobility. The manifestation of social mobility is found in the process of Sanskritization, as noted by M.N. Srinivas. Sanskritization is a process in which people from the lower castes try to move up in the social ladder towards the upper castes by imitation. In it, the lower castes seek to emulate the cultural styles, beliefs, rituals, and ideologies of the upper castes and give up some of their own older modes of living to claim a higher status in the caste hierarchy. However, such a social mobility is not prevalent in all parts of our country. In the caste hierarchy, the members of a lower caste do enjoy the status of a higher caste by virtue of their status acquired through education, occupation, and wealth. Therefore, it is safe to conclude that the caste system is not a completely closed system and the process of social mobility is possible, even without necessarily following the cultural styles, beliefs, etc., of a higher caste, and members of a lower caste can climb up in the higher ladder of social status. 3. Caste and politics. Even today, the caste sentiments persist strongly and continue to be exploited for political power acquired through franchise in the village, panchayat, and other elections. In most of the rural areas, the candidates are nominated mostly on the basis of caste, which in turn determines the voting behavior. In some cases, the dominant or the powerful caste compels the lower caste voters to vote for the candidate of the former's choice. The powers of the upper castes are such that lower castes are unable to overcome the factors limiting their freedom and right. Thus, the caste which has a dominance acquired through numerical strength, economic power, education, and occupation continues to occupy political power. Political power is gained through caste dominance and vice versa. Caste has a number of other functions. These functions remain constant because the caste system has not lost its identity in spite of the changes it has been undergoing. The rigidity of the caste system continues to be operative in the functional spectrum of rural society. Thus, we find that caste has neither disappeared nor remained unchanged. Transformations have taken place in its nature and direction in familiar Indian fashion. as it has died and come to existence again in a different incarnation. Class Marxist writers start from the assumption that in Indian society, caste is being replaced by class. They feel the process of replacement has taken place due to industrialization, urbanization, and politicization. Their argument is based on the assumption that caste is no more a static institution and is adapting to the demands of structural forces. Hence, caste has incorporated the class and class-like elements. Marxist writers have an explanation of the history of Aryans after Rig Veda through class model. About the application of Marxist theory of class model and its use for studying Indian society, K.L. Sharana holds that it is difficult to separate caste and class in Indian context. Caste incorporates the element of class, and class has a cultural caste style, hence the two systems cannot be easily separated even analytically. The caste and class have been coexistent and inseparable entities of the Indian social reality. Growing urbanization is an important factor in introducing elements of bringing about change in rural society. It has impact on the attitudes of men and women towards caste, property, health, education, mode of living, housing, etc. In the process of change, customary and ritualistic practices relating to habits, birth, marriage, and death have been the subject of change. But these changes are generally due to the economic status of the family and not of the caste or subcastes. The consequences of process of urbanization have led significant changes in rural political life and leadership. Check your progress 1. Note I. Write your answer in the space provided below. 2. Check your answer by reading the text once again. 1. What are the important features of a tribe? 2. What do you mean by caste system? 1.4 Family, kinship and marriage. Family is a basic unit to organize a society. It is one of the most important social institutions as well as a universal social group. It is the most universal of all social groupings. Family broadly refers to the primary group comprising husband-wife unit, parents, and their children. This concept gives emphasis on three types of ties, i.e. I. Marriage between spouses. 2. Sibling relations between children and connectivity between the two through the genealogical links between parents and their children. However, the nature of familial structure is not uniform in all times, places, and societies. It is flexible and subject to variations depending upon the character of the social structure in which it exists. However, we shall examine the definition given by Macever. According to him, family is a group defined by a sex relationship sufficiently precise and enduring to provide for the procreation and upbringing of children. In this definition, two main functions are emphasized, viz. the function of procreation and upbringing of children. The sanction for procreation is given through marriage. Every family has a name and a common habitation. Some of the essential features which characterize the family are as following. Times it is a social group defined by sex relationship between partners in accordance with the form of marriage. Times it provides for procreation, upbringing and socialization of children. Times it is generally characterized by common residence. Times it provides for the physical needs of its members and functions as an economic unit. Times it performs other functions like protective, recreational, etc. in varying degrees. Times it provides for an emotional bond of sustenance for its members and meets their psychosocial needs. Times it has a mode of descent and provides base for inheritance. Times it exercises informal social control over its members. In rural India, family as a social unit also plays an important role in times regulating labor requirements, times accumulating and distributing the material goods produced or earned, and times defining the role and functions of each member of the unit according to the existing division of labor based on age, sex, custom, and usage. While the family is a universal phenomenon, it is difficult to define it as there are many patterns of family. Moreover, it would be difficult to define the family in such a way as to include both the individual, nuclear, and the joint or the extended family. The most popular definition of a nuclear family refers it as a group consisting of a man, his wife, and their unmarried children. The joint family is generally defined as the nuclear family plus all kins belonging to the side of husband and or wife living in one homestead. The salient features of joint family are commensality, common residence, joint ownership of property, cooperation, and sentimental and ritual bonds. Today, Indian rural families are exposed to various forces of change. The transition that is taking place in the rural families has tremendous impact on rural society. The transition is brought about by various forces that have impact on the family composition, disintegration of joint family, and roles of members. A detailed discussion on each one of these is given below. I. The family composition. Every Indian family, on an average, has more than 5 members. The increase in the family size may be the consequence of population growth. We need to analyze two factors here: the reasons for population growth and the emerging problems affecting rural families due to population growth. In our country, major factor responsible for the population growth is the type of production system we have. In most of the villages, big part of the land is owned by a few landlords who have the vast population of laborers in their sway. The wages paid to the laborers by the landlords are so meager that they are not sufficient for the sustenance of a family. In such a condition, the members of the family feel that if they have more children, they can have more income. In addition to economic factor that remains responsible, there are other factors also which contribute to the growth of population. Lack of adequate and accessible health services gives little guarantee to the life of the children born in rural families. To compensate the loss of children, the rural families are inclined to have many children. At the same time, several social factors and customs, such as the early marriages, the fertility status of women, illiteracy, and the inadequate recreational facilities, play a vital role in the demographic profile of our rural societies. As a result of increase in family size, many problems arise. It leads to unemployment and cheap labor. As a consequence, family faces tensions. 2. Disintegration of joint family. The disintegration of joint family system is another transition that is taking place. There are many reasons behind this, but here are discussion is focused on economic factors. You are aware about the growing concern for the change underscore of a rural society into an industrial society, which is one of the reasons for the growth of nuclear families. In the traditional rural families, occupation has been one of the factors binding the members to live in joint families. But the families, in a state of dilemma, the families which are engaged in the traditional technologies are also attracted by the outcome of industrialization in their attempt to be benefited by modern technologies. They deviate from their own occupations and family structure. The process of industrialization has also led to other problems. For example, the members of the family are forced to seek job elsewhere, resulting in migration from rural to urban areas. Their skills and techniques in traditional occupation get deteriorated. The families which have access to modern technologies prosper in their occupation, enjoying a good standard of living. This again widens the gap between the rich and the poor. The rural men who have gone to urban areas in search of employment bring back with them the remnants of urban life which get infiltrated into rural life. This also serves as a cause for the disintegration of joint family systems. 3. Roles of members. There is a growing change in the roles of members of the rural families, especially the women. The rural women, who were mainly confined to household work, are forced to work in the field on par with men. The women of rural families do not have adequate time to devote for taking care of their children, who get neglected and may succumb to various illnesses. When the mother goes to field, the infants' babies are looked after by the elder ones, especially by the female children. In this case, while the infants receive less care from the mothers, the younger ones are deprived of even the primary education. The women also easily become vulnerable to various forms of illnesses and they have high morbidity. This is mainly because of their low intake of calories, which is not in proportion to the energy they spend for their hard labor. Thus, the change in the roles not only affects the harmonious relationship between the family members, it also limits the personal as well as economic development of each member in a family. You are listening to this audio book on Audio Learn IGNOU. Kinship. One of the common features, which is nucleus to family, is kinship. Kinship is a vast web of relationship among families and their members. In every society, there are certain general norms specifying what is familial and how familial relationships should be organized. These norms are established either through bond of blood or marriage. Hence, kinship is a system of relationship which is formed based on the bond of blood or marriage which binds people together. There are generally two types of kinship, viz. a final kinship or consanguineous kinship. The former is constituted of bond of marriage and the latter is formed of bond of blood. Kinship is considered as an important factor in maintaining social unity because it provides a framework within which individual is assigned roles related to social, economic, and political functions. It further provides clarity in the context of acquired rights and obligations, and in receiving community aids, etc. The unity and the integration of families depend primarily on the degree of relationship existing between parents and children and between the relatives. Marriage. In India, there is no greater event in a family than a wedding, dramatically evoking every possible social obligation, kinship bond, traditional value, impassioned sentiment, and economic resource. In the arranging and conducting of weddings, the complex permutations of Indian social systems are best displayed. Marriage is deemed essential for virtually everyone in India. For the individual, marriage is the great watershed in life, marking the transition to adulthood. Generally, this transition, like everything else in India, depends little upon individual volition but instead occurs as a result of the efforts of many people. Even as one is born into a particular family without the exercise of any personal choice, so is one given a spouse without any personal preference. Arranging a marriage is a critical responsibility for parents and other relatives of both bride and groom. Marriage alliances entail some redistribution of wealth as well as building and restructuring social realignments, and, of course, result in the biological reproduction of families. Marriage among Hindus. Essentially, India is divided into two large regions with regard to Hindu kinship and marriage practices, the north and the south. Additionally, various ethnic and tribal groups of the central, mountainous north, and eastern regions follow a variety of other practices. These variations have been extensively described and analyzed by anthropologists, especially Iravati Karve, David G. Mandelbaum, and Clarence Maloney. In North India, a family seeks marriage alliances with people to whom it is not already linked by ties of blood. Marriage arrangements often involve looking for a field. In South India, a family seeks to strengthen existing kin ties through marriage, preferably with blood relatives. Kinship terminology reflects this basic pattern. In the North, every kinship term clearly indicates whether the person referred to is a blood relation or an affinal relation. All blood relatives are forbidden as marriage mates to a per tilde on or a person's children. In the South, there is no clear-cut distinction between the family of birth and the family of marriage. Because marriage in the South commonly involves a continuing exchange of daughters among a few families for the married couple, all relatives are ultimately blood kin. Dravidian terminology stresses the principle of relative age. All relatives are arranged according to whether they are older or younger than each other without reference to generation. In the Indo-Gangetic plains, the rule of village exogamy is practiced. Under this rule, marriages are contracted, generally outside the village, sometimes even outside of large groups of villages, with members of the same caste beyond any traceable consanguine ties. In most of North India, the Hindu bride goes to live with strangers in a home she has never visited. There she is sequestered and veiled, an outsider who must learn to conform to new ways. Her natal family is often geographically distant, and her ties with her consanguine can undergo attenuation to varying degrees. In central India, the basic North Indian pattern prevails, with some modifications. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, village exogamy is preferred, but marriages within a village are not uncommon. Marriages between caste fellows in neighboring villages are frequent. Brother-sister exchange marriages are sometimes arranged, and daughters are often given in marriage to lineages where other daughters of their lineage or village have been married earlier. In South India, in sharp contrast, marriages are preferred between cousins, especially cross cousins, that is, the children of a brother and sister, and even between uncles and nieces, especially a man and his elder sister's daughter. The principle involved is to return a daughter to the family that gives a daughter as it expects one in return. If not now, then in the next generation. The effect of such marriages is to bind people together in relatively small, tight-knit kin groups. A bride moves to her in-laws' home, the home of her grandmother or aunt, and is often comfortable among these familiar faces. Her husband may well be the cousin she has known all her life that she would marry him. Marriage among Muslims. Among Muslims of both the north and the south, marriage between cousins is encouraged, both cross cousins, the children of a brother and sister, and parallel cousins, the children of two same sex siblings. In the north, such cousins grow up calling each other brother and sister, yet they may marry. Even when cousin marriage does not occur, spouses can often trace between them other kinship linkages. Marriage among Tiarvan. Some tribal people of central India practice an interesting permutation of the southern pattern. Among the Murias of Bastar in southeastern Madhya Pradesh, as described by anthropologist Verrier Elvin, teenagers live together in a dormitory, Ghotul, sharing life and love with one another for several blissful years. Ultimately, their parents arrange their marriages, usually with cross cousins, and the delights of teenage romance are replaced with the serious responsibilities of adulthood. Among the Muria and Gond tribal groups, cross-cousin marriage is called bringing back the milk, which means that the gift of a girl in one generation being returned by the gift of a girl in the next generation. Almost all Indian children are raised with the expectation that their parents will arrange their marriages, but an increasing number of young people, especially among the college-educated, are finding their own spouses. So-called love marriages are deemed a slightly scandalous alternative to properly arranged marriages. Some young people convince their parents to arrange their marriages to people with whom they have fallen in love. The existence of this old practice is still possible for South Indians and for Muslims who want to marry with a particular cousin of the appropriate marriageable category. In the upper classes, these semi-arranged love marriages increasingly occur between young people who are from castes of slightly different rank but who are educationally or professionally equal if there are vast differences to overcome, such as is the case with love marriages between Hindus and Muslims, or between Hindus of very different caste status. Parents are usually much less agreeable, and serious family disruptions can result. Dowry. In much part of India, especially in the north, a marriage establishes a structural opposition between the kin groups of the bride and groom, bride givers and bride takers. Within this relationship, bride givers are considered inferior to bride takers and are forever expected to give gifts to the bride takers. The one-way flow of gifts begins at engagement and continues for a generation or two. The most dramatic aspect of this asymmetrical relationship is the giving of dowry. In many communities throughout India, a dowry has traditionally been given by a bride's kin at the time of her marriage. In ancient times, dowry was considered a woman's wealth property due a beloved daughter who had no claim on her natal family's real estate and typically included portable valuables such as jewelry and household goods that a bride could control throughout her life. However, over time, the larger proportion of dowry has come to consist of goods and cash payments that go straight into the hands of the groom's family. In the late 20th century, throughout much of India, dowry payments have escalated and a groom's parents sometimes insist on compensation for their son's higher education and even for his future earnings, to which the bride will presumably have access. Some of the dowries demanded are quite oppressive, amounting to several years' salary in cash as well as items such as motorcycles, air conditioners, and fancy cars. Among some lower status groups, large dowries are currently replacing traditional bride price payments. Even among Muslims, previously not given to demanding large dowries, reports of exorbitant dowries are increasing. Dowry is becoming an increasingly onerous burden for the bride's family. Anti-dowry laws exist but are largely ignored, and a bride's treatment in her marital home is often affected by the value of her dowry. Increasingly frequent are horrible incidents, particularly in urban areas, where a groom's family makes excessive demands on the bride's family even after marriage, and when the demands are not met, murder the bride, typically by setting her clothes on fire in a cooking accident. The groom is then free to remarry and collect another sumptuous dowry. The male and female in laws implicated in these murders have seldom been punished. Indian state has initiated several measures at various levels to curb this evil social practice of dowry. But it is still beyond control in the absence of strong public opinion and social awareness. I. Social structure. Check your progress too. Note I. Write your answer in the space provided below. 2. Check your answer by reading the text once again. I. What is kinship? 2. What do you mean by dowry? 1.5 Religion and language. Religion. India is the birthplace of four of the world's major religions, namely Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. History has witnessed that religion has been always an integral part of Indian culture. Religious diversity and religious tolerance are both established in the country by law and custom. A vast majority of Indians associate themselves with a religion. Census 2001 has identified Hinduism as majority religion, with 80.5% of the population as Hindus, Islam 13.4%, Christianity 2.3%, Sikhism 1.9%, Buddhism 0.8%, and Jainism 0.4% are other religions followed by the Indian people. The existence of diversity of religious belief systems in India is the consequence of existence and birth of native religions, assimilation and social integration of religions. Ancient Indian history has roots of some more religions like Zoroastrianism and Judaism, which have its adherents in thousands only. India has the largest population of adherents of Zoroastrianism and Bahá'í faith anywhere in the world. Several aspects of Hindu philosophy like yoga, meditation, medicine, divination, karma, etc., have received popularity even in the West. Even some organizations like Hare Krishna movement, the Brahma Kumaris, etc., have significant influence on the Western spiritual matters. Indian ranked third in the all so far as Muslim population is concerned. The shrines of some of the most famous saints of Sufism like Moinuddin Chishti and Nizamuddin Auliya are in India. Civil matters related to the community are dealt with by the Muslim Personal Law, and the Constitution amendments in 1985 established its primacy in family matters. The Constitution of India declares the right to freedom of religion as a fundamental right. Thus, Indian citizens are free to worship and propagate any religion or faith, with activities subject to reasonable restrictions for the sake of morality and law and order, etc. Language. The principal official language of the Republic of India is Standard Hindi, while English is the secondary official language. The Constitution of India states that the official language of the Union shall be Hindi in Devanagari script. Article 345 of the Constitution authorizes states of India to adopt any one or Maurya's official languages of the state which people of that state can use in all dealings with all branches of local, state and federal governments. It may be either standard Hindi or any one or more of the languages spoken in that state. At present, there are 22 official languages of India. The following table lists the official languages, besides English, set out in the 8th schedule as of May 2008. Look at the screen for table content. 1.6 Let us sum UP. In this unit, efforts have been made to acquaint you with important features of social structure. This unit has highlighted key features of social structures which has been divided into 4 parts, namely I, rural, urban and tribal, 2, caste and class, 3, family marriage and kinship and 4, religion and language. In each part, due emphasis has been given on conceptualization, the transformation and changes taken place due to inner initiatives or outside interventions in the form of policies and programs for change. This unit has also emphasized their significance in the context of rural development in India. 1.7 Key words. Abadiland homestead land in the village. Aboriginal indigenous people. Animistic believer in the existence of individual spirits that inhabit natural objects and phenomena. Tribe, a territorial group with its own culture, language, religion, and a unified social organization. Nuclear family, a group consisting of a man, his wife, and their unmarried children. Kinship, a system of relationship based on bond of blood or marriage which binds people together.
Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.